Hello everybody, Andrew Field here. I just want to apologize. I know it's a really long break from my last video. 13 days, I just checked. I know I wanted to at least post once a week, and I really fell off the wagon hard, so sorry about that. I think I'll be doing better after this video. But prepare for this one because it's probably going to be a longer one. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. So Trump turned one of his he had a Rose Garden press conference, but it ended up turning into a political speech. There was good news with an American company expecting to start large U.S. Phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial on July 27th, which is today. The UK, US, and Canada accused Russia's state intelligence of trying to steal research in a bid to win the race for a COVID-19 vaccine. That's right, Russia was trying to steal information about a COVID vaccine, which tells you two things. One, you know that the data seems to be pretty accurate from Russia, I guess, if not worse, and that means that they actually do have a pretty big COVID problem if they need to steal the information. And if they need to steal the information, that also means that they're not as far advanced as Canada, the US, UK in vaccine. US coronavirus data has disappeared after the Trump administration told states to stop sending data to the CDC. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp banned Georgia cities and counties from mandating masks and face coverings. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan is urging Maryland's counties to enforce his executive order aimed at controlling the spread of the coronavirus in bars and restaurants. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said, quote, science should not stand in the way, unquote, of schools reopening, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it. She's saying that science shouldn't stand in the way, but science should be the thing to look after. With schools reopening, I'm really nervous about certain areas like Florida. I don't think that most of the schools in Florida should reopen. Texas, California, and it is kind of unfair. I mean, when I say shouldn't reopen, like in person, like doing online, and it may seem unfair where a lot of the country may be able to open in person, and states like Florida will be should be more remote learning, but it's their own fault. I mean, not the people, the states, governors. If the governor failed the state, then that's how it has to be, because if you go in person in a bad hit state from COVID, you're going to have a huge spike in cases. If you think Florida's bad now, wait till the end of August when all the universities and K through 12 schools open and a bunch of kids are going to be crammed together and the teachers have to sit in that sorry, teachers have to sit in that. It's not going to be a good scene. And, Europe may be prepared to reopen schools, but America's not prepared enough. So it's a really worrying situation. So comments like that do the opposite of helping. Japan implemented a no screaming rule at an amusement park to prevent spread of the coronavirus. Yeah, this stuff's old. 7/17, July 17th, the U.S. reported over 74,000 cases, which was its highest daily, I think. I think Friday it reported 77,000, so we just keep climbing, and the president doesn't want to talk enough about it, even though we had the daily briefings when it was like 30,000 a day, but when it's going to hit 80,000 a day, we're not going to talk about coronavirus. Makes zero sense. The death toll got to 142,000 Americans in 6 months. I think now it's 150,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Yep. U.S. case total hit 4 million cases. Infections doubled in 6 weeks. An ex-Trump economist said the White House was warned of a potential pandemic disaster as far back as September of 2019. Now, before they were saying November, but this advisor was saying September. September, which was, let's see, October, November was when it was first seen in China. February is where it hit Europe, and March is where it hit the United States badly. So if you go back, that's a few months before it ever got out of China, supposedly. They were briefed on it. Of course, that seems to make sense that the White House would be briefed so early, which means that his coronavirus response is worse than we thought because he had more time to prepare and did a really shitty job. The White House blocked CDC from testifying on reopening schools because, of course, they would. And I also want to point out that I didn't put in here the CDC. Their new guidelines were written by the White House, and that's why it makes zero sense. But a few months back, the CDC actually wrote good guidelines on schools reopening, and it was saying if there's a huge outbreak near the school, then it should reopen. So if you want to look back, that's what you should go to. The CDC guidelines on reopening schools from a couple months ago, not the recent one. Trump said he would not issue a mask mandate nationally, which makes zero sense. If you think about it, it needs to happen everywhere from rural to urban to every area in the country. That's the only way we're going to be able to stop this. So, I guess after Joe Biden wins in November and implements this in January, you know, unless we have a COVID vaccine, it's going to be another year of COVID until Joe Biden fixes things the way we're going right now. Another milestone was 7/18, July 18th, the world death toll reached 600,000 in 9 months, which is crazy. And by the way, the numbers are actually higher because China is definitely lying on their numbers. Their death toll and their case number are nowhere near factual. But I think with the death toll, it's above 650,000 now. Trump called Fauci a bit of an alarmist because he's actually trying to speak the truth, and Trump doesn't like that. Republican Representative Liz Cheney was attacked over her support for Dr. Fauci during a GOP meeting. How low can the Republican Party go? Well, I actually have an answer for that because, along with that, Representative Yoho attacked AOC, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, as she was entering to vote in the House of Representatives, and then couldn't apologize for that. So between those two things, you think the Republican Party is really bad, right? And then you look at Donald Trump. That's all I have to say about the Republican Party. The Atlanta governor is fighting with the Atlanta mayor. Georgia governor is fighting with the Atlanta mayor over a mask mandate. An Israeli doctor was reinfected by coronavirus 3 months after recovering. So that was alarming because I've seen things like that where they were saying people may be getting reinfected. So the herd immunity strategy may actually be impossible because if that's true, because herd immunity worked that, thinking that you wouldn't be able to get reinfected so that your body would be able to build defense, and then if enough people had that, then it couldn't spread anymore. But if it's actually the case where coronavirus can get into your body a second time and cause harm, not only is herd immunity bad, but that really doubles our risk because, people that got it the first time and recovered may think that they're okay and they could get it again. So I'm not 100% sure, but I saw an article on that, and that's really worrisome. So I hope that's not true, but it seems to be where you can get coronavirus twice. Oxford created a vaccine that creates immunity from the coronavirus for 2 months. That's really good news. I think that from these research developments, that coronavirus vaccine could be possible, like within the year. I mean, within a year. I shouldn't say within the year, even though that's what I think U.S. experts are shooting for. But that seems to be very quick since it's almost August already. But I hope a vaccine comes by the end of the year. But the problem is since schools are opening like now, instead of pushing school toward the end of the year, um, we're not going to be able to have a vaccine in time for schools opening, which creates a huge problem, of course. But if we don't have a coronavirus vaccine, we don't know how long that could take, and I'm hoping it's by the end of the year, though. Pinkies crossed. Um, oh yes, Trump flip-flopped on mask wearing because of his voters being old and not wanting to die. He said the pandemic will get worse before it gets better after not wanting to talk about coronavirus at all. The Supreme Court, in a 5-4 vote, rejected Nevada's church challenge to restrictions on service attendance. And this seems very obvious, but Trump's Supreme Court appointees don't really help things. But it's very good that they rejected Nevada's church challenge because they were trying to get like packed churches, I guess, which is very stupid. Um, Researchers trained dogs to detect coronavirus cases in just a few days, which is really promising news. The vast majority of U.S. voters say they support a national mask mandate, which seems to be common sense also. So I don't think Trump would do it still, but that's a good sign that at least 50% of America has a brain because it's so obvious. Um, like, I'd love to have debates with people, but I don't know if I'd be able to debate people say, like, I don't think I could debate people that say they can't wear masks. There's really no debate to that. It shouldn't be a political issue at all. This came out today. Trump's national security advisor tested positive for coronavirus. So does Trump have it? Does Pence have it? We don't know, but that came out this morning. He became the highest administration official to become infected. Senate Republicans in White House seek to reduce weekly unemployment benefits from $600 to $200. That's a lot of money. That's different. I think at the end of the month, the weekly unemployment benefits expire, which is very frightening to a lot of people. I'm very fortunate and I don't have to have this, but I really feel for all these people that need to rely on this government funding to be able to support themselves financially, and it really hurts thinking about all those people like struggling to get by. The unemployment being so high and the economy really tanking and coronavirus being as bad as it is in America. I really hope that people get these benefits. Um, I personally wouldn't know how much of a difference 600 to 200 is. Um, I I don't know if it's the right thing. I mean, $400 different. I don't know. I mean, passing it that way is better than not passing at all. But that just seems like a big difference from $600 a week to 200. I mean, that's still $800 a month, which is pretty good, I think. But I don't know if that's enough to get by. So. There was Hurricane Hannah, which reached Texas. It was only like a Category 1, so that was good, but um, I'm not exactly sure on how much damage it caused. Hurricane Douglas, I think, was weakening at first. It was like a Category 4, then a Category 2, but I think it touched down as like a Category 2 or 1, so that was also good, but again, I'm not sure on what damage was caused. And it was going toward Hawaii, so I hope that everybody was safe in Texas and Hawaii. A Houston wide receiver, Kenny Stills, was facing a felony charge after being arrested during a protest for Breonna Taylor. The wide receiver and over 100 other people marched to Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron's home to call for justice against the officers that killed Taylor. The NFL unveiled an Oakley face mask mouth shield, that's a lot of words, to combat the coronavirus, which seems like a good idea, but the question is are people going to be able to breathe with that? I would assume so, but that's a question we will probably find out as they're going into training camp. NBA is allowing social justice messages on the back of jerseys. LeBron chose not to, which I think he should have, being an advocate. The U.S. carried out its first federal execution in 17 years. Three Philadelphia women attacked Spirit Airline employees and beat them up, threw objects at them at a Florida airport because it's always Florida. It was from a flight being delayed. I hope they would get arrested for that, or at least charged. Um, whew, yeah, secret police. Here we go. It's like we're in Russia. Trump deployed secret police against protesters in Portland, Oregon, which is, by the way, unidentifiable federal agents, which arrested a protester without reason, put him in an unmarked car, and some people predict the city's a test case for the rest of the country, which they were kind of right because he deployed in other cities and then he threatened others like Detroit. The Oregon governor called for Trump's federal officers to leave Portland and stay off the streets because they're just escalating tensions. The Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshals Service deployed federal agents in Portland to quell the protests. The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, faces multiple lawsuits for what they're doing. The American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit and will attempt to block the DHS from targeting journalists, legal observers at demonstrations. The Oregon Department of Justice will sue several federal agencies over civil rights violations. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent a letter to the president saying she does not want federal troops deployed in Chicago. He sent them anyway. But I appreciate Lori Lightfoot saying she didn't want them there, and I think she's going to probably sue him because I think she said she would sue if he tried to deploy them there. Trump sent a Navy veteran went up to the federal agents asking them to remember their oaths of the Constitution, and they ended up breaking his fingers and pepper spraying him, and now he's going to require surgery. So I think from that, there was like a wall of people during these protests, a wall of moms, a wall of dads, a wall of like nurses and caregivers, and because of that incident, there's now a wall of veterans, which is really cool. Um, you know, still protecting our country even after they did. Um, let's see. Justice Department Inspector General is going to examine federal law enforcement's clashes with protesters in D.C. and Portland. Judge allows officers to use crowd-controlling weapons like tear gas. The Portland mayor got tear gassed. So it's a crazy scene down there in Portland. Trump sent more federal agents to the Portland courthouse today as the standoff intensifies. Mary Trump's book about Donald Trump sold 950,000 copies on the first day of sales. Mary Trump wrote the memoir to help take him down because, quotes, take him down, and quotes, because a second term would be the end of American democracy, which I agree with. She called on Trump to resign, and she said, quote, his response to the pandemic is not being able to admit a mistake and it's caused division. Mary Trump also said his rhetoric and actions endanger the lives of African Americans. So Trump immediately lashed out at his family member. The EU court blocked a data pact amidst fears of U.S. surveillance. Excuse me. The UK government said Russia tried to interfere in its 2019 general election. Tens of thousands marched in the second week of protests of the Kremlin in Russia. First of all, I support the protests. The Kremlin is corrupt and disgusting, and I'm really proud of those people because of how bad the conditions are in Russia with the Russian government and how strict they are. But people, tens of thousands, are still protesting there because they feel they need to. So, if you're asking how low Donald Trump can go, he put the portraits of Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush, moved to a rarely used room because he didn't want to see them, and he replaced them with other people that weren't as good. CNN was talking about mental health and the stigma, and I think that's deserves a round of applause because it's really important, especially now with people like, the quarantine's still kind of going on, and a lot of places closing down, so it's a lot more time by yourself, and dark thoughts can more easily creep into your head that way with everything going on, and with the coronavirus taking out a lot of people, it can cause a lot of dark thoughts too. So it's a tough situation for a lot of people. So I'm glad they're bringing it up. Jeff Sessions lost in his Alabama primary. Defense Secretary Mark Esper banned Confederate flags on military bases, which was a pretty big win. The Lincoln Tunnel was leaking. I don't know if it still is, but it was. Walmart, the world's largest retailer, requires all shoppers to wear masks starting July 20th. It did. Sorry, this was a bit older. There's a national coin shortage due to the coronavirus. NFL is allowing players to have social justice decals on their helmets. They're not having any preseason games. The Supreme Court Justice ruled. Oh, sorry. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg revealed she had been undergoing chemotherapy since May due to a recurrence of her liver cancer. Apple announced a plan to become carbon neutral by 2030. Walmart will close on Thanksgiving to thank associates who stepped up during the coronavirus. MIT engineers designed an affordable, reusable mask as effective as an N95. China said the U.S. government abruptly ordered the closure of its consulate in Houston, Texas, which China then ordered the U.S. to close its consulate in Chengdu. Trump signed orders to lower prescription drug costs. Trump canceled the Jacksonville, Florida portion of the Republican National Convention, which was a big deal, and it also proves why school reopenings should not be at the advice of Donald Trump, because he's saying for all schools to reopen, but he can't even have a big part of the Republican National Convention. The MLB started playing exhibition games without fans, and they started the season where it's also without fans. But the season has recently been thrown into chaos because there's been an outbreak in the Miami Marlins. I think 8 players and 2 coaches, which forced the postponement of 2 games. So that kind of throws the MLB into a tailwind, and hopefully they get to continue. I don't watch baseball that much, but I know the Chicago Sox and Cubs are both pretty good teams. And I think the regular season usually is 162 games, which is way too much in my opinion, but it's down to 60 games, so that's a lot better. So I think they may be able to do it, but I don't know. It's very early on and they're having this problem. So, I mean, you have to expect that because it's in Miami. Um, but yeah, it's very tough to continue with the MLB. The NHL announced a new team called the Seattle Kraken. I think their first season is the 2021-22 year. Washington's NFL team is temporarily known as Washington just the Washington Football Team. Isn't that a great name? John Lewis, who was an icon of the civil rights movement, passed away at age 80. He served 3 decades in Congress. Trump ordered flags to fly at half staff over Lewis's death, which was a good decision, but I think the flag should also stay at half staff to honor all the Americans that are work and are being killed by the coronavirus. Trump wished former Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell well. He wished her well for some reason. You know why. Elon Musk made $2 billion this past week, and guess what? He opposed giving another stimulus check to the unemployed. So, if you didn't know already, fun fact of the day, Elon Musk is a total asshole. This guy made $2 billion in 1 week, this past week, which is more than most people make in like 10 lifetimes, maybe 100 lifetimes. And he was opposed giving a check to people who don't even make money because they're out of a job. Just makes me angry. Congress is debating on giving another set of checks. U.S. intelligence community has warned that Russia, China, and Iran are trying to influence the 2020 election. Lions, tigers, and bears. Skippy. A national presidential poll found that Biden got 49% of the vote in the poll. Trump would get 39% and Kanye would get 2%. Kanye said he dropped out. Well, his campaign manager said he dropped out of the election after 11 days, but for some reason he decided to keep going. I guess he saw too many memes of him walking out of the door after 11 days. So he announced his first campaign event in South Carolina. That was horrible. It was all over the place. He was all emotional and talking about almost aborting his kid, and he really has no idea of any policies. I think, the main thing is just saying he's pro-life, but he really doesn't have any policies in place. He's really horrible when it comes to public health and the coronavirus, so he's really bad as a leader. I would never trust him. And he's getting 2% of the vote, kind of takes away from Trump, I think. So if he wants to stay in, whatever, but if he becomes president, I'm moving to Canada. I'm telling you right now. If Kanye becomes president in 2020, I am moving to Canada. Um, no joke. Let's see. So, oh yeah, and after that, Kanye failed to be listed on the ballot in South Carolina. He's not even going to be able to be listed on like half of the states anyway, so shouldn't get too much of the vote. But you never know with America. Donald Trump got elected, so can't be too sure on anything anymore. The Reagan Foundation asked Trump the campaign to stop using the former president's name or image to raise money. That was big, especially with less than 100 days now until the election. Republican John Kasich is speaking at the Democratic National Convention, and Biden, over the next couple of days, should announce his vice president, which is huge. Trump will place his campaign manager as polls show him trailing Joe Biden, and Trump better go down in November. So if you guys did watch the whole thing, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be making more videos more frequently. So I'll see you on the next video. Peace out and stay safe, guys.